Good afternoon and welcome to this video. Today I am finally harvesting my first set of potatoes this year. I grew these potatoes, I believe, in mid-March, if not early March. And one of the signs that potatoes are actually ready to pick is when their leaves go yellow. They start changing color and loosening a bit on the ground. So that means it is time to actually harvest them. I've had to work quite hard on the soil around this area, but over the past years, this particular space here it receives a bit more sun and the soil here is a little more loose. So harvest for potatoes here have been relatively good. I have to say though, I've planted my potatoes around my mint, and so I think there may have been a little bit of maybe slight disturbance. I don't think it's much of a disturbance, but I think slight disturbance because I don't have a lot of actual physical ground space. Um, some of my potatoes were planted in bags, and over the years as well, I realized that the potatoes that are put in bags, at least the ones I've put in bags, have not done as well as the ones in the ground. I think if you have space and your soil is relatively loose and it's quite loose, it digs in well, it's well drained. That's the best type of soil for potatoes in my experience over the years. Another part of my garden where I put potatoes down is not quite as drained as this. I will show you that a bit later. So here I am just loosening up and digging through down into the soil just to see that how far I can go to get any potatoes that might be further down in the ground. I think the more loose your soil is, the better crop of potatoes that you will yield, and the more space you have. Rocky stones, definitely rocky grounds, do not do well for potatoes because potatoes do need space and they need to go right down into the ground. One of the things to remember when harvesting potatoes is that it's best to use gloves and dig the soil out without using any tools that can cut into the potatoes and damage them. The first time I harvested potatoes, I used tools, and honestly, I believe that I kind of sensed I may damage potatoes, but I just dug in and I damaged quite a few potatoes, but um you do learn, and now that I'm experienced, that's one of the tips is just to use gloves and hands to just dig down as far down as you can. It's potentially possible to miss potatoes here and there, so it's important to take time during this process. Now, having said all that, just continue watching even as I talk about the topic that I'd wanted to have a chat about today. And that is the topic of polygamy in the African setting, polygamy in African countries, polygamy that kind of manifests in different ways, especially perhaps when we are in the diaspora, for people who are in the diaspora. Now, there's a mentality for many men and for many women, should I say, that polygamy, it is something that is expected. It is something that many men are allowed in the African countries to actually have more than one wife. Now, whereas that is true, and that is probably predominantly cultural in many African countries, I'd like to come from a different angle so that people could perhaps have a different kind of understanding, because there is also polygamy that is put upon or brought upon women and with unknowingly, um, and almost in a way that makes them have absolutely no choice in the matter. Let's first say and describe what polygamy is, which polygamy is where a man marries more than one wife, a second or a third, or consequent wives. And that is generally supposed to be and ought to be by, by virtue of having a conversation with the first wife and them being in agreement to a second or third or fourth wife. What's happening now is that many men, and if you look in the arena of celebrities, or even people that aren't celebrities, people we know in our circles, you know, yeah, people we know in our circles, whether you're in Africa or whether you're in abroad in UK or wherever. What's happening is that many men are having affairs without the knowledge of the wife, and that straight away is adultery. That is not polygamy. You've entered adultery and broken the vows of a marriage. So there's two things happening here. First is adultery. That's betrayal. It's a sin. If you're a Christian, that and it's a sin. Whether you're Christian or not, it is a sin, because if you did not uh, discuss that with the first wife, then definitely, and if there's no agreement, then definitely you stepped out of your marriage. What then happens is many men are doing that, and then the first wife is finding out after the adultery, after a marriage even. There's a case of a lady who came online recently to speak about her marriage. She's here in the UK, and she said she had an agreement with her husband to take out a loan of £34,000 that they wanted to move back to their country, of which I'm not going to mention. And so, yes, so that was the plan, and they both agreed to it. What happened then next was a shock, even a real shock to her. The man said he didn't want to stay in the UK. They agreed to go back. She took a loan. The man went. They were supposed to build a house, and the man went silent. So the lady sent her sister to this specific country to look for the husband, only for the sister to find that the man was actually conducting a traditional wedding. He was getting married to a second wife. No conversation about it, nothing. So that was an affair leading to polygamy. The thing that the lady said was that she did not want a divorce. And I'm not saying that she had to have a divorce, no. But she didn't want to. Her husband was allowed. In her country, the husband is allowed, a man is allowed to marry more than one wife. And he could do that, it's fine. The story of the Lord is a different one. I won't go into that. And the shock of it all, because there she was accepting it as a polygamous situation, but yet it wasn't actually polygamous. She wasn't contacted, consulted about the matter at all. So what I'm saying is that many people are finding themselves, many women are finding themselves in a so-called, should I say, so-called polygamous situation, so-called polygamous marriage, by practically by force, if you like. And I say by force because they did not know about it. They were not consulted about it, but they found out accidentally. And now the woman is forced to take decisions as to what she's supposed to do in such a situation. She's forced to decide if she wants to stay in that marriage or if she wants to go. There's a case of another lady, a Muslim woman. Her husband married a second wife, and that, of course, was also through an affair and done secretly. She found out later. Now, of course, she was extremely hurt, but she decided to stay. And she decided to stay. From what she said, the husband supported her in the scenario, supported her to come through and accept the fact that there's now a second wife. It was very hard for her, but she decided to build her marriage and continue in that marriage. What I'm saying here is that it is sad, and I think it is selfish that a woman should have to be subjected to such a situation. It is very detrimental to her psychological health, mental health, everything. The dynamics of everything changes in what they say is the polygamous marriage. Because to me, it is no longer polygamy. As a matter of fact, it is actually just complete betrayal and overturn of a marriage. It is stepping out of a marriage. That is just adultery. It is polygamous by virtue of adultery. That is just how I would call it. So that's that, and I wanted to talk about that, clear it, because many of us Africans are misunderstanding. We are misunderstanding what polygamy is. Is it classed as polygamy or is it adultery? And I believe that I've explained it, and I've looked at it in the Christian context. I've also looked at it from the perspective of a woman who is left to deal with the pieces, the broken pieces that come with that kind of situation. And I think it is high time that as Africans, we actually come to the realization, African men particularly, come to the realization the degree and level of injury is deep. The degree of damage to families, to family structure is deep. My last word about it is that if you want to go into what is a polygamous marriage the right way, I think you need to, men need to consult their wives, you need to consult your families, and you need to involve them in the process. And let your wife know that this is the kind of marriage that you'd like to have. Let her know. So much more problems would be reduced. My opinion is, personally, I don't believe in polygamy. I don't condone polygamy because I think the man has a lot more to gain than the woman. And I think it is a very uh, it's a very mentally disturbing situation for a lot of women and a lot of families, whether it's in Africa or whether it is here. So having said that, thank you so much for watching up to this stage. If you're new here, these are some of the topics we discuss. With the background of what I'm doing here is my garden, my passion, and yeah, so that's it. That's my potato harvest. I think I've done relatively well this year. Given that the weather has been very good and on my side, and I think I will put a second batch of potato plants down. Until next time, thank you so much and God bless you.